but hello, everyone. Crazy. Hi, Liliana. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
You're fine. I can't hear you. Oh, okay, good. There you are. Good. And I see some faces. So today we're going to do a lesson about. Do you know what we're talking about today?
Frank Llyod Wright.
American
Frank Lloyd Wright.
Frank Lloyd
Okay.
Wright.
Yes, exactly. So Frank Lloyd Wright is one of my favorite architects. So he is also from my state of Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is very proud of this person. So I want to kind of introduce you to him in a fun way. So I hope you have your phone with you today, because we will play a game. Perfect. We're going to play a Kahoot. I hope my Kahoot is okay. There may be some little mistakes or something, so forgive me. You know, I love to teach with a game. So I am going to share my screen with you, and then I'm going to start. First, I'm going to start the game before I share my screen with you. Actually, I think I'm going to do something different. I'm going to open the screen. Since I'm not on my computer, I've got two open. I just want to make it easier for me to toggle between the two. So I'm going to log here. I know you can see my screen, but you believe me. So I'm going to log into Kahoot, and you will play with me. I just hope that we can get everything to work correctly. Okay. I have to just say it's okay on my phone. And then we will get started. Do you know about Frank Lloyd Wright? Is he a new name for you?
No.
No.
He's a new name for you. Great. Well, I like it when we do something new. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just waiting for it to load. Like I said, my internet today is not very friendly, so hopefully we can get this to work. This is a quiz with 27 questions.
27.
Get it started, and then I'm going to share my screen with you.
Is this man alive?
I just
No.
I can't
Yeah,
really hear you. One
Dead.
second. I am not sharing my screen yet. I'm just getting into it so that it's perfect. 1 second here. It's still loading. Computer. It's taking a little longer than normal. Okay, we can go back to the other page. Maybe we should say a chant. Okay, now it's starting to show some signs of life. Okay, we're going to go to classic mode. Then, okay, I am going to share my screen now. You can use your phone, you use QR code, or you can put in this pin, which is loading. Okay. All right. So you see my screen okay? You can use this, or you can go to Kahoot.it and put in the game pin. I'm going to turn off this terrible music. Okay. Yeah, so the important thing is you have to go to kahoot.it. Ah, Lily's in, Julie's in. And I just remembered a mistake I made. Who are we waiting for? There's some other people. Are you finding it okay?
Yes.
Okay. Who am I waiting for? Abda's in. Thank you. Okay. Okay, see Lily, Julian, Bruna, but I'm waiting for, there you are. Hello.
Okay.
Is that everybody or is there someone else?
We are on.
Everybody's in? Okay, because right now I cannot see you. I can only see my screen. Are we ready?
Yes.
Let's go. Frank Lloyd Wright, architect. 3, 2, 1. Quiz. Who are we learning about today? Harry Potter, Frank Lloyd Wright, Wonder Woman, or Caroline?
We don't see the last
The last two. We don't see the last two.
You can.
the green. We
What
don't
can you see? Harry Potter and Wonder Woman, but not Frank Lloyd Wright?
You don't see the last. We don't see.
Okay. You know what we're gonna do? Okay, what I'm.
You don't see the last line. You see only the first line.
I'm gonna just try on my. Yeah, I think. Okay, I think this is because the computer I'm using, I don't have Zoom on it, so I'm using a browser. So let me see if I can get in from a second computer. I don't know if I'll be lucky enough. Technical problems are always a big pain, aren't they? So I'm just going to try to open up my other browser. So you can only see Harry Potter and Wonder Woman, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I have a second computer here that has very low. I'm going to see if I can use both of the computers at this point. Okay. So at least I'll have both of them. I could try it. Okay, so you can't see the bottom two. So basically the top two are red and blue and the bottom ones are yellow and green. I'll read them to you. Right now, if we just, I'm going to try one more time to see if I can get in our meeting using my computer that actually has Zoom and everything. I can't guarantee. Okay, it's opening. Because then what I can do is I can try to use, okay, I'm going to join this one with my computer just for Kahoot, maybe. Okay, Simone, ci sei?
No.
No.
Okay.
Lei ha azzeccato lo stesso,
No, credo Liliana.
Maybe I can do it. Oh, you know what? Maybe I can do it. I'm going to come back to you. Don't worry. I'm just seeing if he made me the. I'm going to ask him to go into your classroom. Okay. So if Simone comes in, just tell him to always let me in now. Great. Perfect. Okay.
Recording in progress.
Sorry. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
You're not.
I see you two times in my screen.
I know, too many times, right?
Three
Yeah,
times.
but the second time is.
Scollegati da uno, se no si fa casino.
No.
Si è portata anche le cose, bravo.
Okay. Oh, I'm turning one off. Sorry, I'm having internet problems, so I'm sorry you can't see the bottom. It's because I'm using the browser. Should we continue anyway and just try it? I'll read it to you, so you have to listen.
Prova a condividere un attimo.
Okay?
Si vede?
Il problema è che io sono con un altro computer che sta funzionando meglio, ma non ho Zoom, quindi sto usando il browser che si vede che non si vede bene. Quindi proviamo di nuovo. Entire screen. Ok, quindi se vi mostro questo, voi non vedete sotto, vedete solo qua.
No, I see all the answers.
You see all the answers? 1, 2,
Yes.
3, 4?
Yes, I see all. Yes.
Perfetto? Abbiamo risolto. Vai.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Shall we continue?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect, thanks. When I ask you a question, you have to use your voice because I can't see your faces. So, okay, next one. All right. Quiz. Who was Frank Lloyd Wright? A lawyer, a philosopher, an architect, or an egg? Thank you. Good. So we know it's working now. Everybody got that one. Good. True or false? Frank Lloyd Wright created this house. See that house? That kind of flat looking house? Yeah. And since we're here, I just want to show you what it looks like. So this is sort of a typical prairie style Frank Lloyd Wright house. He was born in the 1870s. He had a 70-year career, and his prairie style, which is very typical here, emphasizes horizontal instead of vertical, okay? So Frank Lloyd Wright's teacher, his mentor, actually was responsible for some of the most famous skyscrapers in New York, but Frank Lloyd Wright preferred things that were blended into nature. So he was into this horizontal stuff, and he liked things that didn't stand out. He liked them to kind of be nestled into whatever was around it. So he's very interested in blending into nature. Okay, Lanfranco, very good. Quiz. When was Frank Lloyd Wright born? 1867, 1924, 1901, or 1850? Yeah, it was 1867. I think I said 1870s, but around that time, okay? So he died in 1959, okay? So that gives us an idea of when he was living and also how modern he was for that time period. He really was interested in creating a specifically American type of architecture, and he was definitely successful at that. Where was Frank Lloyd Wright from? Scandinavia, England, America, or Antarctica? Yes, he was from America. So you have to throw in these easy ones sometimes just to keep you awake, right? All right. Quiz. How many times was Frank Lloyd Wright married? 1, he was very faithful. 2, he got it right the second time. 3 is a charm, or he never married. Actually, he was married 3 times, which is interesting for a person who lived at the time period he did. He was married, you know, like people at that time did, got married, and then he felt creatively stifled by his first wife and decided to leave her for one of his clients' wives, and who was a big feminist at the time. And they never married, but they did run away together to go to Europe. And then when they came home, he had to build a new studio because he couldn't go back to Oak Park, Illinois, near Chicago, where he had his office, because it was too scandalous. But interesting, he left his children, his wife, and the girl, the mistress, his lover, also left her husband and their children. And then they stayed together for quite a while, but then there was tragedy when he they built a house together in Arizona, and one of their employees, an ex-chef or cook, left. He was no longer working for them. He went back and he killed the mistress and the 2 children and 2 other employees. So big scandal. Oh. Quiz. Name this house which was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. Is it the cement house, the nature house, falling water house, or geometric house? Look at the picture to help you. Yeah, falling water. So this was named by UNESCO as one of the 28 most important places to visit before you die. Or the Smithsonian actually called it that, but it is protected by UNESCO. Notice how there's a waterfall underneath the house. So the house was actually built over the waterfall because that was, look at how many windows there are. Look at how horizontal it is. This is a very, this is probably the most famous Frank Lloyd Wright house. Still exists, you can still visit it. And it really plays on nature. It doesn't want to stand out, it wants to be part of nature. Quiz. Which of these is not a characteristic of Frank Lloyd Wright architecture? Colorful windows in modern furniture, cement design, blending with nature, or natural colors and materials? Okay. Actually, cement design, no. He was into, so he designed in his houses, he was famous for designing everything about it, not only the outside and the windows and the stained glass, or which he called art glass, but also the furniture, the cutlery that you would use, the knives, spoons, forks, everything. And so he used cement, but really he was more into, organic. He called it organic architecture because it was more natural. This building here, if I'm not mistaken, or it's very similar to a school that he designed. He designed a school called the Prairie School, which is also the name of his style of architecture, which is in Racine, Wisconsin, in my city. He also designed the Johnson Wax building. So Johnson Wax, you see it on television as like out on and off, those insect sprays. Well, it's a chemical company. They make lots of things. And Frank Lloyd Wright designed their office building. So these are famous, and it's still in use today. They have another one that's more, they've got a newer, bigger one, but it's still in use today. So my city's full of Frank Lloyd Wright architecture. And it's a small city, only 85,000 people, but I think we've got 5 or 6 Frank Lloyd Wright houses just in Racine, Wisconsin. Quiz. The Guggenheim Museum was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. Where is it? London, New York, Washington, or Madrid? Right. So when we think about the Guggenheim, it doesn't have that same look as those other things because there's not a lot of nature around it, but it's a very, it's an important structure. People recognize it when they see it, and this is a Frank Lloyd Wright piece. He also had pieces, he still has pieces around the world, including even in Japan, there's a Frank Lloyd Wright. Interesting things happening on the scoreboard. Quiz. Frank Lloyd Wright designed the Metropolitan Museum of Art. True or false? False, right? He didn't design that. He designed the Guggenheim. We just said that. All right. Quiz. How many buildings did Frank Lloyd Wright design in his 70-year career? Be careful because the blue and the red, the blue and the green are a mistake. Sorry about that. It's either 1,114 or 50. I made a mistake. I erased those and then I didn't save it. How many buildings did he design in 70 years? He actually designed 1,114 buildings. About 550 of them were built. So not all of them became buildings, but on paper, the designs are still, they still exist for 1,114 buildings. So he was a very prolific architect. He was always creating. And one of the things that he said was after his family was murdered, he just continued to work almost like he worked in, so he wouldn't have to think about the tragedy in his life. So he was probably a workaholic, just always working. Quiz. What type of architecture did Frank Lloyd Wright introduce to the world? Geometric, dynamic, organic? Yes, you listen to me. Thank you. You got it. Organic. He called it organic architecture. It was his own name. He coined it. Good for you. Quiz. Frank Lloyd Wright believed in organic architecture, the belief that buildings and structures should be balanced with nature, all buildings should be edible, all buildings should house goats, not people, or buildings should use only water collected in rain barrels. Oh, you all got it right. I was too slow reading it. Buildings and structures should be balanced with nature. Now, if you look at this picture, this is a very typical prairie style house because you can see the windows are stained glass, which again, he didn't call it stained glass, colored glass. He called it art glass because he really, and often the designs in the windows were the same as the designs on the chairs. And he was also, a fun fact about Frank Lloyd Wright is he was a stickler, meaning he was a pignolo. He was a stickler about posture. He thought you should always sit up straight. And so he created chairs that only had 3 legs. They were very beautiful chairs, but to sit in them, you had to sit up straight. So he did it because he thought you should always sit up straight, have good posture. You can Google that, it's true. True or false? Frank Lloyd Wright said, oops, this didn't save. I believe in God, only I spell it nature. There's a mistake in the question. Didn't save my changes. I go through these Kahoots, I correct them, and then I forget to save them. But you got it right. Good for you. Quiz. This Frank Lloyd Wright house is in the style, the Tudor style, the Federal style, the Salt Box style, or the Prairie style. Yes, it's the Prairie style, okay? That's the one that was about the horizontal lines. Lanfranco is on fire. True or false? Frank Lloyd Wright went to the University of Wisconsin. True or false? These are some examples of his stuff too. It's true, he's from Wisconsin. We went to the same university. But I'm not a genius, and he is. So these are also Frank Lloyd Wright pieces. Okay. You can actually visit his home in Chicago, by the way. Okay. Next. True or false? Frank Lloyd Wright left his family to run away to Europe with one of his clients' wives. True or false? It's true. I just told you, didn't you listen to my story? I said he ran away, he left his family, she left his family. Complete scandalous at that time. Even now it would be scandalous, probably. Oh, Bruna knew that one. Well done. True or false? Frank Lloyd Wright's mistress, 2 children, and 2 other people were murdered by a former domestic employee. True or false? True. Scandalous. Crazy. You can't imagine the dramatic life. Okay, at their house in Arizona. Ugh. Everybody got that one. Good, you're listening. I like that. Quiz. Frank Lloyd Wright structures, such as falling water, are known for what? They blend into their natural surroundings, blend into composition surroundings, or blend into abstract surroundings. Yes, they blend into their natural surroundings, right? I'm going to insist on that point. If you learn nothing, you're going to remember that, right? Bruna is on fire. Quiz. What did Frank Lloyd Wright call these windows which occurred often in his architecture? Stained glass, art glass, painted glass, or colored glass? He called them art glass. Okay, so they were stained glass, but as everything he did, he liked to give his work a special distinction. And so his very special windows were called art glass. His, in fact, there are the homes, that's one of the distinguishing features of a Frank Lloyd Wright home is they often have these very intricate leaded glass windows. They're gorgeous. And also he designed the lamps that went in these houses, the furniture, that, you know, even this glass would be on the inside. Maybe you'd have a curio cabinet for your wine glasses, and that would have these. So he really designed every detail of these houses inside and out. Which one of Frank Lloyd's houses was featured in the Wright 3 novel? This is a one that Taliesin, Roby House, Falling Waters, Crystal Bridge. These are all Frank Lloyd Wright houses. I wanted to take this one out. So let's see if you just can guess this one, the Roby House. So this is just another, all of these names are famous houses, by the way. Taliesin, that's the one where he designed that one to be his vacation home. That's where his family was killed. The Roby House, Falling Water, you already saw, and Crystal Bridge is another one. So all of his houses had a special title. And a lot of his work became famous because of books, okay? Because of architecture books, his own books, and other people's. Quiz. If there was a tree on the property, Wright would likely, which means Wright would probably incorporate it into the design of the building, select a different lot for the building, chop it down to give open space, or climb the tree and try to figure something out. And that picture is one of his homes as well. Who would build a tree that would be in your living room? Okay, well done. What building in New York, designed by Frank L. Wright, was finished 6 months after his death? We already noted this one. See if you remember. Metropolitan, Buffalo Expansion, Guggenheim, or George Barton House? You all got it. Well done. Wright's style of architecture was known as the Victorian style, environmental style, prairie style, or the nature style? Yep, you got it. Well done. True or false? Frank Lloyd Wright said, "Give me the luxuries of life and I will willingly do without the necessities." True or false? To do without means I don't need the necessities, just give me the good stuff. It's true. Frank Lloyd Wright loved to live very richly. In fact, he made a lot of money, but he never had any money because he spent all the money that arrived to him. In fact, when he was earlier in his career, he worked for a very famous architecture firm in Chicago. Now, Chicago was a very important hub for architecture in those days, in the early 1900s, because there was the Chicago fire. I don't know if you've ever heard about the Chicago fire, but the story goes that there was a woman, and I don't know if it's true or not, but she had a cow. I can't remember what her name was, but my great grandmother used to tell me this story because her family lived in Chicago. And this woman, her cow knocked over a pail of milk or something, and it knocked over a candle, and this candle blew up all of Chicago. I don't know if it's true. Do you believe it? I believe everything my great grandmother said, so I believe it's true. But so there was a giant fire. It really wiped out most of Chicago, and except for the old water tower building that you can still see, it was made of stone, so that didn't burn down, but everything else did. So Chicago became a very important place for architecture because they had to rebuild everything. Frank Lloyd Wright was living in Chicago. He was working for the most famous architect at the time, but he never had money. So what he did was he would design buildings on the side, okay, without telling his bosses. So it's kind of like he could keep all the money. And he called those houses bootleg houses, because bootleg in English means to make illegal alcohol, right? So during Prohibition in America, when it was illegal to buy or sell or drink alcohol, people were making their own grappa, making their own whiskey, and that was called bootlegging, right? You bootleg, sell your on the black market. So he called those houses bootleg houses because he never had money, but he loved to live like he did. True or false? As a young man, Wright came to Chicago to find work. He found the city to be beautiful. True or false? False. He thought it was so ugly. He thought Chicago was very ugly. But he did his best to beautify it over the next 70 years. Wright had extravagant taste and was often in debt. So sometimes he designed houses on the side, which he called sneaky houses, debt houses, bootleg houses, or after-hours houses. Yes, you listened. Bootleg housing. So those were his, and he later, his boss found out about those houses and was very angry about the fact that Frank Lloyd Wright was creating houses for his own benefit. Not very honest. How did you do? Third place, Lily, yay, you're on the podium, well done. Second place, Bruna, yay. First place, dun da da da, Lanfranco, yay. Oh, you did such a good job, yay. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment, but actually I'm gonna keep sharing because I'm gonna just do a little search for Frank Lloyd Wright. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Great. So I'm going to leave that and just show you. So one thing you can do is just take a look at some of the images. I just want to give you this chance to look at some of his more famous things. So you notice like the prairie style, everything was sort of flat, horizontal, right? You know, and then when there's nothing to build around, he still tried to do kind of these natural forms. You see these kind of circles, but I look at this and I can tell immediately that's a Frank Lloyd Wright house, right? There's of course falling water again that we saw before. This is some of his interiors. I would love to show you the three-legged chairs though. Frank Lloyd Wright three-leg chairs. Can you imagine sitting? They're beautiful, but no, those are not okay. So these are the office chairs he had, right? But I'm looking for, there was one, it's in the shape of a triangle. It's just a crazy shape. Don't see it here. But these are some of his furniture anyway. If you see these long backed chairs with the lines like that, that's very typical Frank Lloyd Wright. This particular house is, it's not a house, it's an office building. This is an office building in my city for Johnson Wax, the one I was telling you about before, okay? So the three-legged chairs, you can't really see it here, can you? Too bad. Oh, well. Anyway, so that's Frank Lloyd Wright for you. I'm just going to unshare for a second. Okay, so what's your reaction? What do you think about these, about Frank Lloyd Wright? Liliana, what do you think?
Yes.
Her houses are very nice and amazing, and I think before I know that he was born in the 18th century, I thought that he was born in in 19th century, because here architecture is very modern.
True. Yeah, it's difficult to imagine. In fact, when you imagine someone who's born not in 1890, not in 1900, but in 69 or something, it's incredible, isn't it?
Mm.
So he was already dead in the 1950s, but he created this very, what we still consider kind of modern. Yeah, interesting. Thank you. What about someone in the classroom?
Yes, it's interesting because he was really modern. He was. Because, for example, the Valley Water House was built in 1936. It was really forward, no? 1930, before the World War II, it was built, no? Now, with
Incredible.
nowadays eyes, he is a little bit older. With nowadays eyes.
Sure.
Yeah. But
True. It's true. Even when I look at the houses now, I think, oh, those look like the 1970s. I don't think they look like the 1940s.
yes, and if you can imagine a man before World War II who sees the Valley Water House. It was really modern, really science fiction, almost science fiction for that time. For now, it's normal. It's normal. It's anyway very
Right.
nice, but we have other outlook now. With less time, more on glass, steel, and so on, And then in a way,
Yeah.
Valley Water House is a typical example of organic architecture, with wood and water in the forest,
Right.
But it has always had a big problem, never solved. The damp, humidity,
Right.
Yeah,
Well, it's going to be damp in there. It's right built over a waterfall.
yeah.
Like my house is not built on a waterfall, and
In that house from the beginning to now, there is to damp. It's started to say in English, to damp, to humidity, no? It is
Right.
Yes, and
Yeah.
you have always to find, to restore, to renove, and so on. Always. Because it is,
Yeah, and this is true for not just the dampness problem, but there are lots of problems with Frank Lloyd Wright houses, and they often have to do with, if you want to preserve a house like that, it takes a lot of maintenance. They're very expensive
yes,
to maintain because they used all natural materials. It's true, but
and they
falling water is probably a great example because of its location, built over a waterfall. Correct.
They renovated the house, I think, 15 years ago. They renovated the last time the house 10 years ago. It is a short time. But anyway, they have always
Yeah.
work. They have always work.
Always. Yeah, it's also true that, American houses are often made out of wood and things, so there's a lot of painting happening, lots of maintenance, which I don't see a lot here because here everything's made to last for a really long time. So it's even amazing that the Frank Lloyd Wright houses are still in such good condition, but I think they're protected, so people really do invest in keeping them nice. In fact, I noticed that a couple of months ago, in my city, there was a Frank Lloyd Wright home for sale that nobody knew existed. It had been in private families for so long that nobody knew until they were ready to sell it. And now it was like, what? There's another Frank Lloyd Wright house? We had no idea. Can you imagine? So his work is still considered like a real treasure, but the practical side of maintaining a house by Frank Lloyd Wright, I cannot imagine how expensive it is. On the other hand, I find it so interesting when I think of the level of detail that he spent time to design every bit of the house, the pillows on the sofa, the pillows, the windows, the knives and the spoons and the forks, everything he really thought about every single detail. And it was one person thinking about all of these details. Of course, he had a team of people and many people who worked for him and who learned from him. But I think that level of involvement you never see anymore. You know, now that in Italy, in Trieste, a lot of people are getting their facciate done, right? And we're getting my house, the outside of my house, redone. And it's impossible to get the people who are working on, you know, the tiles and the people who are doing the electricity, and it's impossible to get them to even coordinate. Imagine a Frank Lloyd Wright house where every detail was really thought to go together in that way. It's impossible to imagine.
Yes, he used a lot of wood, no? He used a lot of wood, no? In Bolzano, we use a lot. We used wood too, no? For the houses, no? But if you think with the wood, you have to repaint every 3 years. Always, every 3 years we have to repaint. Then this is a work.
It's big work and it's expensive.
Expensive. If you repaint,
Good.
it is wonderful. If you don't, it's not more nice.
It looks terrible. Bruna, what do you think?
Oh, first of all.
In general, tell me what your reaction is to Frank Lloyd Wright, to anything.
Didn't know the architect very well. I knew very well his waterfall house, but otherwise I actually didn't know almost anything about him. But I didn't understand very well. Maybe because I couldn't see you, because this is more difficult for me. I am not used to listen to English, but I could understand. I think the heart of your revision, of your report. Okay. It was interesting, and strategy, and how many creations, how many projects he has planned and realized, and yeah, as always, it's a very good experience to try to listen and to understand.
Good job. Thank you. What about Julie?
For me, it's the first time that I have listened about this person. I don't know who was. And it's a big surprise, very interesting architect. The houses are very modern for the time that there are building, and very interesting.
Good, so you learned something new. Well, you know that with these lessons, I'm always happy if I can share something about American culture that's new for you. So Frank Lloyd Wright in America is very famous, but I noticed that here he's not as famous, right? So I'm happy that when I can bring something new, even just open a tiny window to something new for you, it makes me very happy. So I'm glad, that, maybe this opens up some curiosity for you, or even to look at Frank Lloyd Wright's mentor, who may be more interesting for a lot of people. He worked for an architecture company called Adler and Sullivan, and they were responsible for some of the buildings that we still can see in New York, for example. So sometimes it's, so he's the student of what they called his mentor, his name, it started with an S. It's not Sullivan, but something close, Celio, something, I can't remember. But his the person who Frank Lloyd Wright studied under, is his nickname is the father of the skyscraper. So every time you see a skyscraper in New York City or in any other place where you can find very tall buildings, you can think of this man who worked for Adler and Sullivan, who was also one of Frank Lloyd Wright's teachers. So it's kind of a small world, right? You enter into this world of knowing a new architect for you, but in the end, you know, the works of his teacher were works that we all recognize when we see them, you know. And maybe you've seen the Guggenheim before, maybe you saw that museum, so you saw that particular shape, right? So there's certain museums that kind of stand out because they're so different. And I think the Guggenheim is a good example of that. People who don't know Frank Lloyd Wright, maybe they know that building because it's so famous also. Anyway, well, I'm so glad we were able to do this. I want to apologize for my technology problems. What a nightmare. Usually in my office, the internet is perfect. Today it was a problem, but I want to thank you for being so patient with me, because you know, sometimes it just happens where the technology just doesn't do what you want it to do. So, but at least we got to play our game anyway. Do you know when our next meeting is?
No,
I would like to suggest a film. There is a movie inspired by the life of Frank Lloyd Wright. Famous movie with
Fantastic. What's it called?
It is The Fountainhead. From a novel.
Oh, okay.
From a novel of Ayn Rand.
I will find it and I will watch it. Thank you for the suggestion.
In Italiano è La fonte meravigliosa. In English is The Fountainhead.
Okay.
It is a movie about.
I will find it. Thank you.
On the life of
Wonderful.
With Gregory Peck. It is nice. It's famous.
Oh yeah. Okay. I know of this film. I never saw it, but I heard about it. Thank you for that suggestion. Are you looking up our next meeting? Did you find it?
the 19th and the 19th. In 2 weeks, we have the other conference.
2 weeks. Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, this is wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you too.
Do you have any questions or any comments?
Oh,
You're okay? Do you feel satisfied with today's lesson?
Yes, absolutely.
very interesting.
Good. Okay, in spite of the problems. Well, anyway, as always, I hope that this will be something that if you're interested, you can dive deeper. You can go look at the film that Lanfranco said, or you can read up or go look at some photos. I think it's always fun. I think you can go on some virtual visits as well to see some of his places like Falling Water and other places. So good. Well, thank you so much. And I hope I'm going to just, I think we're okay. I don't think I'm just going to see if, no, I think I don't have to do anything else. I think we are all good. So I want to thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And in the meantime, I hope you're doing everything, reading in English. I hope you have your phones in English. I hope you're living your life in English, and we'll see you then, I think in 2 weeks, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye, Karen. Bye.
Thank you, bye. Take care of yourselves. Bye, bye, bye.